Hey, you free people out there. We are UATV English. Julia and Sergey and Henry are here. We are discussing Russian war economy. I call it, but Julia calls it
the Russian death economy.
Death economy. Russian death economy. What is going on in Russia right now in this regard, and what is going to happen? So,
well, I don't call it the death economy. It's what the world economists call it. It's the economy of death, because basically the idea is that a dead Russian, which is so funny because that's what we've been saying the whole time, but in a different context, is more valuable than a living one, because basically most of Russia's population is impoverished. So now women actually want their men to go to the front because they receive compensation for their dead husband or dead child or dead whatever in the amount of money that is much larger than they could ever make if they were alive. So the economy of death basically is this bubble where Russia continues asking people to sign up for the military for these particular reasons. The men go because they get paid a lot, and then the women are okay with it because if they die, oh well, they're rich now. Well, rich. And Russia basically has switched to the war economy because at this point the only things in Russia that are properly functioning are enterprises and things connected to the defense sector. And that's what keeps Russia floating, and Russia's economy is still not tanking nearly as much as we would expect it to tank because it's in a bubble. But bubbles tend to burst.
Yes, of course. But still, it can still go for ages, like
for
years and years.
Sometimes.
For decades.
Yeah, but I mean, well, first of all, Russia is losing, 600,000 men at this point? A little more than that? That's a lot of men. Russian President Vladimir Putin recently encouraged Russian women to stop going to universities and start birthing up to 12 children. Because clearly, someone needs to be a soldier.
12 children in one go? Or it's
consecutively.
Right,
consecutively, like one after another.
That would be a good idea, actually.
I don't think we need any more Russians on this planet.
I don't think this is possible. Well, maybe Putin knows.
What do you mean this is not? But there are 145 million of them already. If they all start birthing 12 children each,
before to start birthing, they would need to make
catastrophic. Yeah, exactly. It would be like the population of China, probably, or something like that. I mean, I'm terrible at math, but.
Like how quickly we change the ways. We're talking about now, like when Russians is going to reproduce. No,
yeah, but like 12 kids, like imagine you have twins or something. That could be like 6 years, that doesn't even have to be 12 years. It could be 6. But the point is that Russia is in this like economy of death where, dead Russians are more valuable than living Russians, both for their families and I suppose for Russia, because that means they went to the front lines. Women are now working in the defense sector. So not only are they getting payment for their dead husbands, brothers, I don't know, fathers-in-law, whatever, but they're also getting jobs at factories. So right. It seems to Russians like their economy is in fact booming. But what ends up happening is that there aren't people that are willing to work in retail. There aren't people that are willing to work at cafes. There is a huge shortage of men. There is a huge shortage of everything. And it's kind of like the 2008 home bubble, real estate bubble in the United States. Right. It's not going to last a long time, especially if your losses are 600,000 men.
Anything to add to that, Sergey?
But this bubble, for example, American, it was working for 30 years before it collapsed. So we can't know, when it will be, and it's really, it could be decades.
Well, there are several factors that are influencing this, right? It's like there are European and American sanctions that continuously keep piling up on top of Russia. And of course, they're not necessarily doing what we want them to do at the moment, but at the same time, like it does deepen the situation, right? Again, I did give the housing crisis as an example, but it's not the best example, but it's also an example of a bubble. But there weren't factors like what we're seeing in Russia, where again a lot of men are dying, a lot of people are leaving the country, a lot of jobs are just basically unoccupied because people just simply don't want to work there. Why, if a factory pays you, I don't know, 3 times as much to work there, right?
But they have migrants from Central Asia, for example, and so on.
So interestingly, I've noticed something, and then I was able to confirm it. So most of my Uber drivers at this point are from Tajikistan. Like
in Kyiv.
Yes. And I was very curious because I have never seen such a large amount of Tajik people in Ukraine, especially it's like now I don't take Ubers to work because I have a car. But before when I was taking an Uber twice a day, right? At least. So it was a lot of Tajik people. And so I started asking them where they're from and when they got here, and all of them were saying that they're from Tajikistan and they got here about 10 days before they picked me up. So I started asking them, what's up? Why Kyiv? And so here is what's happening. There are actually not a lot of migrants from Central Asia coming to Russia anymore. They used to have agencies that would send you to work in St. Petersburg or Moscow. Now you get paid in rubles. You cannot exchange rubles for anything, and it's really hard to take them out of the country. So that market is now closed for them. So now these agencies send them to Almaty and to Kyiv. They come here, they expected this to be some sort of like a dumpster because, that's what Russia portrays it as, and that's the TV that they get. They come to Kyiv and they're like, oh my God, I want to live here. So now a lot of the taxi drivers are actually from Central Asia, and that migration that used to come to Russia now comes to Kazakhstan and Kyiv because here you can make money and exchange it. And in Russia, you can make money in Russia, but you're going to keep it in Russia. And they have families back home to feed because they don't usually move with families. It's like the man of the family comes to work.
It's a very interesting fact.
Yeah.
So we're like, is it like, do you think this is the process? This is going to continue? This is going to rise?
I think there's going to be a lot of that happening because when you have this economy that is a bubble that works for a particular group of people in the country, right? Everything else gets neglected. So for instance, all of that immigration, like people who used to work construction in Russia, they're no longer going to come to Russia. People who used to be taxi drivers, they're also going to come here or come to Almaty or come to Tbilisi or somewhere else. The places that used to be portrayed as undesirable because you can't make money there. But surprise, surprise, now you can't make money
only there.
Yeah, you can't make money in Moscow anymore. Not only can you not make money in Moscow, you can make equally as much money here. Absolutely. And it's a much nicer environment to live in because for your salary, you can get a decent place, somewhere decent, and the government somewhat cares about you.
Open,
Yeah.
And there is no such xenophobia in Ukraine and Kazakhstan, of course.
And it's also closer to Europe. So, if you for instance, I know that right now we only travel by trains and cars and it's hard to take a plane somewhere for 30 minutes like we used to. But it's still closer. So these people who come here, they can, and I don't mean these people, I just mean the people that come here, they can, cross the border and go see Europe and things like that because those are things that are far away for them. So this is a much more desirable place for them. Every single taxi driver that I've talked to, their brother or cousin used to work in Moscow and now they work here and that's how they brought them here through the agency. And they're all I've never thought Ukraine is so nice. And I'm just yeah, what can I tell you?
Stay here for another year and you'll end up in Europe. There you go.
Yeah.
Just by the way. Well, let's speculate again. Well, what happens when the bubble burst? Well, what happened in 2008, I can tell you that a lot because I experienced that. See that tear in my left eye? No?
No.
All right.
It's in your mind, the red lines in Jake Sullivan's. Anyways.
Jake Sullivan's red lines. Right, so the bubble bursts. What happens, do you think? Do you think there will be the end of the Russian economy in general? Or is going to,
so.
I want to hear what you have to say.
Several options can be, but no one in Europe or in China are interested in
a catastrophe.
Yeah, in exterminators of Russian economy, because it would be famine and so on. They would help Russians in such a way. So
just to keep them carrying, but
yeah.
But they're but it's interesting because Russia is already starting to struggle, right? Because they're already starting to neglect all of these things that sort of anything that doesn't bring them money to put into their defense sector, they're neglecting. That's going to take an imprint on the world anyway. I think the biggest issue with why, and this is kind of a different topic, but also connected, right? I think the biggest issue with why we as Ukrainians are not getting what we're asking for and we're not getting we're not being taken seriously is because the world, as you said, is very scared of Russia collapsing, both economically and as an empire. But I am, like looking back at it, it's like, well, people must have been scared of what happens if Germany collapses, right? In World War II. And you figure it out. It's like, yeah, it's inconvenient, but it's a lot less inconvenient than having a terrorist that constantly keeps getting bigger and better.
Nuclear
of course.
Yeah.
But they, in any case, China and Europe, I think they would help.
China for sure, but I don't know if Europe would at this point. I think, first of all, Russia is sanctioned. Too sanctioned.
Well, we're talking about Putin's version of Russia. If the bubble bursts, and that will be probably meaning the end of war. Do you think, Yulia, that will be the case?
I think if the bubble bursts and Russian economy completely collapses, I mean, like where, banks are collapsing and Russia doesn't have money, I still don't think that Putin's regime is going to collapse. It might be Putin that will, Putin's power that will collapse, but Putin is a part of the apparatus.
Yeah, absolutely.
The apparatus is the same. And Russian people are naive enough to think that Putin is Putin and he holds and he's like the puppeteer master of the whole country. Yeah, but there's just going to be another Putin after him. So helping Russia is still only helping the regime. I think that we actually need to let Russian economy collapse, and we need to see what's going to happen with that. I would love to think that Russian people are going to do something and like start a revolution, but like, yeah, exactly.
I've lost the hope, really.
Yeah, exactly. No one has the hope, which is why I'm saying I'd like to think that will happen, but it just likely won't. I think that we should just that's the thing. It's like we are so scared of letting go of control, right? Like we as the world, as the Western civilized world, we have to control everything. But it's like in this situation, I think we need to let go of that control. It's like we're trying to control whether Putin is going to use nukes or not. We can't control that. We should just try to defeat him instead of trying to step back and not and not encroach on him. And it's the same thing here. I think we should let it burst and we should let it happen and see what happens then, because at the end of the day, we're going to be okay and we'll figure it out. But but instead of trying to live in the world that already exists with Russia being what Russia is, maybe we let it play out. And then we try to mold Russia into something reasonable,
Yeah, absolutely. Last time you said that Russia is a paper tiger. There is no way. It's a juggernaut of sorts. No way. And there are no red lines. Well, there are. Only us, But in Russia, we crossed. Ukrainian army breached each and every red line. Yeah. Even the Kursk one.
Yeah, actually.
So, and then everyone is fearing about, oh my God, the escalation.
How much more can he... The funny thing is that, when they say escalation, they mean nukes, right?
Yeah,
He's not going to use nukes.
Absolutely no way. But
the only way he can escalate is to continue hitting Ukraine. And it's like, okay, well, here is the funny thing. We keep asking you for things we can use to prevent those hits. So it's like, if you're going to tell us that you're not giving us long-range weapons because you're scared we're going to get hit, then
worse than that, they give us long-range weapons, but they don't they give the permission to use it doesn't follow. It's like farewell to arms without Hemingway. I mean, come on.
I received this text. I have a group chat of my American friends who are very interested in things in Ukraine, and they all really follow follow what's happening. And they were like, everybody in America who supports Ukraine effing hates the Biden administration right now. Which makes sense, because it's at this point, Umerov went to the U.S. to literally be like, okay, so you don't want to let us decide what we can strike? Here is a list of targets. This is what these targets are responsible for. Here is where Ohmedit was struck from. Can we destroy
undeniable thing.
Can we please destroy this?
Yeah, well, what happens is the world maybe finally starts to understand that the world is just what organizations were actually ready for this? UN? I don't think so. Security Council, which is a joke.
Yeah. And this is basically what holds the world back, right? Yeah. Is instead of actually trying to let Ukraine defeat Russia, we're trying to control what happens to Russia. And by we, I mean the collective West. And I interchangeably use we as Ukrainians and we as Americans, because sue me. I've lived half of my life there.
We like that Ukraine, Europe, and America here,
Yeah. But the whole point is that, we collectively as the Western world, we try to control things so much that we try to we try to control what happens to Russia. Unfortunately, nothing new is going to happen to Russia, and the world order is not going to change unless we let it go and let it play out. it's like we should control, helping Ukraine. We should control helping, helping sort of like come up with strategies, but like stop trying to control Russia and catch them when they fall. At this point, we're we, collective West, are more concerned about Russia's economic collapse and what happens to Russia than we are about Ukrainians. Ukrainians dying and the world order in general, because, oh no, what's going to happen when the Russian economy collapses and Russia is no longer a big empire? It is. It's like, I don't freaking know. Like, did you know that in World War II?
Well,
no.
Maybe that's
but you knew that Hitler needed to be stopped, and Germany needs to be and Germany needs to be brought back down to earth. And so the same thing needs to happen to Russia. And I think that we should, I think the bottom line of this discussion, right, is that Russia's economic collapse is inevitable, and what the West is doing is trying to control it and prevent it from happening. And it should freaking happen. We should just sit back and observe and then step in.
This is, the West was actually trying to do something about the crisis of 2008, which doesn't really help.
Yeah, but that's not the same,
Yeah, it's not the same because...
it didn't help then, and it does not really have any effect on what Russia
Well, they could not, the United States could not give itself money in 2008, but it can give Russia money.
Russian economy is much less than U.S. economy, so how they can...
they can pad it.
And the main thing that Russian economy is not the main economy in the world.
No? So, okay.
But I also honestly think if Russia fully starts going down the drain, China is not loyal enough to start giving Russia money. I think the thing is China has been using Russia for Russia to buy all of it.
Of course,
import, export.
They would use, but help too.
China has a list of problems of their own.
Yeah. Also, the Chinese economy is dependent on the United States.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if they lose Russia, it's problematic. It's kind of like, if you had 7 Bugattis and you totaled one of them, it's upsetting. but you still have 6 Bugattis.
And then Russia's actually not going anywhere. I mean, in a couple of years after that default that Russia fully deserved, there's going to be still Russia. In changed form, maybe we can do something about it.
I mean, I really hope that it's just going to finally, this is, it's kind of out of Disneyland sort of desires, out of Disney movies, but I hope that it's going to break down into republics, and the people whose languages and cultures and traditions have been oppressed and sucked out of them can start renewing them and living in their own little countries,
No more imperial paradigm that actually rules everything, but even if there is nothing to rule, actually.
It would be great, but it wouldn't happen.
See, we all agree on that, but we also hope for best.
Yeah, but it's sort of
some doubts.
I mean,
this.
So how can we actually, in Ukraine, make this
I think it's not about Ukraine. I think it's how do we act towards this bubble? The bubble is going to burst by itself because that's how bubbles work, right? I think that we all need to just kind of sit back, take a bit of an anti-anxiety pill, and just relax and watch it instead of trying to do everything for it to not happen, because in my humble opinion, the West is doing everything to prevent that from happening. And it's
armed forces of Ukraine does everything to make it happen, actually.
Yeah, but it's kind of it's attrition with our allies. And I genuinely think that since we understand Russia the best in Ukraine and in Latvia and in Lithuania and in Estonia and in Finland and in Sweden, right? It's kind of maybe listen to us and then take a bit of Zoloft, personally recommend, and sit back and just watch. It's prescription medication. I need
it's all right. Some commercial detective. It's all right. Yeah.
Sorry, sertraline. Let's take the brand name out of it. Take some sertraline. Take some Xanax if you would like to. I don't know, whatever your doctor prescribes, but
sit back
calm
and
down.
Relax. This is
I think that's the motto.
Yep, and I don't think that we from Ukraine now can affect Russian economy more than
we already have.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess the culmination statement here is you and your very nice TV presenter voice, you need to tell the West to take a sertraline pill. And
what's so bad about my voice?
Nothing's bad about your voice. I was saying it's a very nice presenter voice. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah,
so do tell them to go to a local psychiatrist and take some chamomile tea.
That would be good actually for the world to really analyze what is going on and to stop try to influence things that actually are not important. Russia is going to survive this crisis, and it deserved it absolutely. The Russian nation deserves to fall in economic terms, at least, because they made another Tsar, another Papa, another Daddy, to rule the country. So that was just the same way as the Joseph Stalin, the Vozhd Narodov, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It is not a nation and a tribe. And what Putin did to a constitution like it is a menu in a restaurant. He just adds "we the people." He takes out the people. He puts Putin in there. Jesus, what a way to burn! But we, the people, decide that Russia deserves an economic crisis, and what we just can do about it is nothing. We just win the war, and that's enough for the Crusher. For Crusher.
Crusher.
Isn't that good?
Yeah, Crusher.
Crusher. Ooh, I love it. With my next presenter voice.
I love how he thinks he just came up with it
But
while he literally stuttered and then was like, ooh, this is great.
Absolutely stuttering about it.
All right,
Crusher
cheers to Crusher.
Cheers to Crusher. Okay, so we're going to put a new hashtag on this, Crusher. So I think we all agree that.
We should start a flash mob,
A flash mob on that.
Yeah, Crusher.
It will be good.
Vote in the comments below. Crusher. Huh? Nice. So, any questions to you in this regard to discuss? I don't know. I want to discuss on the Crusher.
It seems like we have.
I think we've discussed everything.
We've discussed it enough. So, we, the Red Lions, are changing our ways. No more these discussions where Yulia will lead from now on with new guests and new hashtags and new themes.
I'm going to steal Crusher. I'm sorry, you didn't patent it. So
I'm just gonna, from the bottom of my heart, I present it to you.
I'm gonna say it was my idea.
Sure, go ahead. All right, so that was the end of it, and hopefully the end of Russia. Crusher.
And hopefully we're going to experience Crusher.
Crusher. It was UATV English.
You also got to say Crusher.
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 Crusher. This was UATV English discussing Russian death economy and a possible inevitable burst of the bubble and Crusher. Stay tuned and safe.